Hey guys, welcome back to Web Systems and Technology. And we are going to discuss the second lesson, which is all about basic syntax review. So far, we were able to discuss from the lesson one the understanding of the use of PHP, learn the important characteristics of PHP, of course, understand how PHP are applied, download and install PHP in the SAMP server. So I hope you were able to follow the steps that I've given you from the previous video presentation on how to properly install your PHP and SAMP. So far, if there will be like questions that you want to address on the installation of PHP and the SAMP web server, actually now is the time to do that before we actually jump into the next few lessons on web systems and technology. So if you have questions, you can now raise your hands, or if you are too shy to do that, well, you can simply type in your question in the chat box, and we're gonna answer them one by one. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that. Then if there is none, let us going to proceed to the lesson that I have prepared for you today. Okay, so our lesson objectives are as follows. By the end of this lesson, you'll be able to learn the tags being used in PHP, creating comments, declaring variables, and how to use echo and print statements. So let's take a look on the syntax overview. Sorry about that. Okay. The PHP parsing engine means a way to differentiate PHP code from other elements in the page. The mechanism for doing so is known as escaping to PHP. So there are four ways to do this. The canonical PHP tags is actually the most universally effective PHP tag style. So we follow this syntax. You open your PHP by using the less than sign, called the question mark sign, and then inside those tags are your codes or PHP codes. We also have the short open or SGML style tags, or short open tags look like this. So actually it's pretty much the same, no? Ang nawala lang is yung PHP na word. The next escaping tag is the ASP style tags. So it mimics the tags used by active server pages to delineate code blocks, and this look like this, using the less than and the percentage symbol. And then we also have the HTML script tags, because you're actually adding your PHP inside your HTML element. So if you still remember our discussion from the first web design and programming subject, na gumagawa tayo ng HTML tags, body, and so on. So you actually include your PHP tags inside the HTML script tags. And, well, it should somehow look like this. Of course, hindi naman ganyan kaiksi yung ating PHP codes, but it's just a sort of like a format to be used kapag nag-create tayo ng PHP. Actually, PHP is a very it's a very forgiving language. Bakit? Kasi it simply accepts whatever you enter into the notepad notepad editor, and then your web browser will simply read the codes that you have written there and try to interpret whatever that you have written on your codes. So, hindi siya katulad ng ilan sa mga programming language natin that as long as it contains errors, it's not gonna run or view the output of your program because it still has an error to it. Let us proceed to the next topic, shall we? Because marami rin po tayong i-discuss ng mga tags. Pero yung iba dito kasi very similar lang din. Kung alam niyo yung paggamit ng C language, meron silang similarity talaga kasi it was actually developed in reference to the C language. So, how do we actually create comments in PHP? Alam niyo naman po siguro, no, na even in other programming language, there are two kinds of comments. Merong single-line comments, and then meron ding multi-line comments. How do we do that in PHP? For single-line comments, it's the same with any other programming languages. You use the 2 forward slashes, and they are generally used for short explanation or notes relevant to the local code. So as you can see on this sample program, this part right here is actually a single line comment. This with a sharp symbol here is also a comment, and this symbol or after this sharp symbol will be considered a comment as long as they are on the same line. Let me ask you though, bakit nga ba tayo nagko-comments, no? If you are not really into putting comments onto your program before, hindi kayo masyadong nagko-comments, bakit nga ba meron? Kung hindi naman siya binabasa ng compiler, hindi naman siya nagkakaroon ng bearing sa output, bakit merong comments sa ating mga programs? So, as for me, no, number one reason, and I guess it's everybody's or every programmer's reason, this is actually to help us document well our program, to let other programmers read our programs easily, to make sure that other non-programmers, people who's going to be reading our program, is something that they can also understand because they are not really that technical like us. So those are just some of the reasons why comments are also part of your programming. So I guess when making comments is actually exist, you know, in a more technical term, according to tutorials or w3schools.com, a comment is the portion of a program that exists only for the human reader and stripped out before displaying the program's result. There are again two kinds of that, the single and the multi-line comment. Ito naman yung example ng multi-line comments natin, no? Katulad pa rin ng other programming language, we use forward slash and then the asterisk, that's the opening, and then the closing is asterisk and then forward slash. Then whatever symbols that you have written in there inside these two symbols will be considered multi-line comments. And as we have read on the screen, they are generally used to provide pseudocode, algorithms, and more detailed explanations when necessary. So, meaning if you really need to add something on your documentation that's gonna take a couple of lines of code, and then use the multi-line commenting in PHP. So the multi-line style of commenting in PHP is the same as C and Java. I guess it's also the same in C++, if I'm not mistaken, another programming language. So let's move on to the additional example of creating multi-lines. This is actually not a comment, but sort of multi-lines printing. So, what and how do we use multi-line printing? So, ito yung example natin, no? This is our first example. Print, and then 3 less than symbols and the word end. By the way, if I wasn't able to tell you this yet, PHP is actually case sensitive, so we're gonna treat small letter is different from a capital letter. So if there will be like keywords to PHP that you will be using, make sure to follow the casing properly. So now, okay, so now this is actually like multi-line printing, no? It's something that you, if you wish something to show on the screen, ito yung gagawin natin. This is our opening PHP tag, and then sharp, first example, print, 3 less than symbols, and then end. Now, this uses the here document syntax to output multiple lines with so on and so forth. I know that there are still like some variables here, keywords here that you don't really understand yet. So we'll have a different discussion on that. Kaya for the time being, let us follow on what I have written on the presentation. However, you're still free to actually put in your questions in the chat box while I am discussing the presentation. And then after this, we are going to answer your questions one by one, most especially if they are part of the lesson already that you were not able to follow and understand better. The next example here is this. If you wish to print multi-lines as what we have written here, use the word print and then put it inside a quotation mark. Okay, and then semicolon. So again, your PHP is also, your PHP statement should also end with a semicolon. Actually, it's already a part of the presentation later on. Kasama na yun sa mga topics na i-discuss natin. Kaya nga na-mention ko na talagang magkakaroon pa tayo ng discussion dun sa ilan sa mga unusual words na makikita nyo rito. So, let's move on to the next slide. PHP is white space insensitive, meaning this white space stuff is actually the stuff that you type that is typically invisible on the screen. So it includes spaces, tabs, encourage, returns. So end of line characters. Parang sinasabi natin na these PHP statements are actually, they actually don't care if you added spaces, tabs, and on your code. Hindi nila yan hindi sila strict doon, hindi nila yung pinapansin. Now, why do we do those, or why do we do that, or how do we do tab and spaces? No, meron tayong ilan sa mga characters na dapat natin i-add to our code para magawa natin yung mga spaces and tabs and encourage returns na yun. For example, on the screen, each of the following PHP statements that assigns the sum of 2 plus 2 to the variables 4 is equivalent to this. We use the $sign for us to create a variable. Actually, isa pa rin yun sa discussion natin. So, this is our variable name. 4 is equals to 2 space plus 2 space. So, actually, if you are going to analyze this example, merong space in between the numbers and the plus sign. So, PHP doesn't care about that. As long as it was able to understand what you're trying to do, kaya may space o wala, it's going to do the operation that you actually put in here. So, kung nag-add ka ng number, then it's gonna do it as it is. Now, how do we add naman, yung mga tab? Kasi for example, in the future, makikreate or magpapaprint ka sa screen ng mga merong spaces or tabs pala, rather. So, we use this tag. So, again, para pa rin to sa HTML coding natin, no? Ito yung element natin, tab, sa loob siya ng less than and greater than symbol sign. So what it's gonna do, it's going to create spaces and tabs on your screen. Now, ito naman yung sinasabi ko na PHP is case sensitive. This is another example of how to create PHP tags inside naman on an HTML document. So, di ba kanina na-mention natin yung different ways to coding? Balik tayo dito, no? Different ways to escaping to PHP. Ito yung HTML script natin via HTML tags. Ito naman yung example niya. No, so, nasa loob ng HTML and the body, and then your PHP escape is inside the body of your HTML. So, this is also gonna work on your end. Okay, now, looking at the example, iisa-isahin natin yung mga, what we call this, yung mga keywords na ginamit dito. I guess, you somehow naaalala nyo na kung ano ba itong mga ito, HTML body. Okay, kailangan ko palang i-review yon. So, please go back to our previous semester for the review kasi nandun yung mga kailangan nating malaman. Alam ko na medyo bitin yon, especially for the section that I was able to handle from the last semester. So, if there is something that you really wanted to ask before na hindi natin na-address, still you can make a consultation of that with me. Do it on my, on offline or pwedeng face-to-face sa school. You can visit me at CCC every Friday. So for this example, siguro if it's a typical thing for you to see these tags already, then let's go ahead and discuss the PHP tags that we have seen. Now, the word print is something that you're going to use to print something on the screen of your users. So, dito again, nasabi ko na kanina, the use of $sign is actually you creating a variable in your PHP. So, kung meron na kayong experience sa pag-create ng, sa pagpo-program using C, C++, Java, or kahit ano pang programming language yan, variable is just the same on how you use it on a programming language. So, dito, we use it as a container to hold value of like a certain data type. Ang kagandahan mo lang kay PHP, hindi mo na kailangang maglagay ng data type dito. However, on PHP 7, if I'm not mistaken, and above, that kind of feature is already added. For those who really wanted to be specific on the data types that the variable they created can handle. Now, on this case, dito nagpaano lang po tayo, nagpa-print tayo sa screen ng string na variable capital is, and then we called the variable that we created over here, which is the capital with the value of 67. So, we are actually expecting that the output looks something like this. Now, on this example, I am showing you, actually, I want you to be very critical on checking the casing in here. If you notice, no, PHP is going to display the text that you added on your string as it is. So, katulad ng nabanggit ko kanina, it's case sensitive. Therefore, if I write in here capital C, small a, capital P, and so on, your browser is gonna follow the same capitalization of letters because it's case sensitive. So, that's actually the example of this one. No? Bakit mamula pong 67 doon sa pangalawang output? Ito po yung first, ito po yung second line. Sorry, ito po yung first, variable capital ng 67, and then yung second po, wala po siyang 67. Pareho lang naman po siya na capital na tinawag. Now, it's because on this second line that you've seen here, that we put in here, I type in capital C, capital P, capital T, capital L. So, even if it's just capital C and the rest of the letters are small, it will still not generate the same result as the first one. Why? Because our variable capital are written in all small letters. So, meaning, if you need to call that variable, you have to do it strictly, write the letters accordingly to on how you declared it. So, kung small letter yan, edi write it in small letters just like this one. Alright. The next thing that we'll be discussing are the statements that have expressions. Statements are expressions terminated by semicolons. Now, before we actually go ahead and discuss this slide. I'm sorry, I just need to insert this from the previous slide kasi nakalimutan ko siyang sabihin sa inyo. I just wanted to tell you guys na kung bakit ba merong case sensitivity techniques in most of the programming languages. In some computers, there are sensitive information that you may want to save, like username, password. So to make a better option for the security of this kind of information na ginamit na po yung case sensitivity. So parang for example, kung medyo madaling hulaan yung password mo, at least when you use a couple of combination of lowercase and uppercase, mas mahirap na siyang mahulaan lang, o hindi na siya basta-basta mahuhulaan ng mga hackers natin. Apart from that, some people say na it's actually more flexible when writing lowercase and uppercase. So parang other people have an option to use uppercase, some wanted lowercase, some wanted mixed case. So it's made for flexibility. So continue na tayo again. Sorry for the short notice of the case sensitivity technique. So again, going back to this, statements are expressions terminated by semicolons. A statement in PHP is any expression that is followed by a semicolon. So katulad ng nabanggit kanina, when you end your statement, it should have a semicolon at the very end. Any sequence of valid PHP statements that is enclosed by the PHP tags is a valid PHP program. So here is a typical statement in PHP, which in this case assigns a string of characters to a variable called greeting. So greeting, again, kapag nakikreate ng variable, may $sign sa the first character is the $sign. Is equals to welcome PHP, and then inside that string, kailangan po nasa loob siya ng double quotation mark, and then end by a semicolon. So again, mga snippets pa lang ng ating codes, wala pa yung buo. Review lang muna tayo ng mga basic things na alam nyo na, so perhaps kailangan lang i-review. Continue na tayo since sa pag-uusapan natin na yung variables. Let's now dig in to more topics about PHP. We have here how to create, declare a variable in PHP. So in this case, ginamit ko na lang uling example is something that is inside an HTML document since you are already familiar with this. Again, in PHP, a variable starts with a $sign followed by the name of the variable already. So there's no need to put in a space in between. After the $sign, doon nyo nasimulan agad yung inyong variable name. So on this example, inside the PHP script, meron tayo ditong text, X, and Y variables. Please notice how it was created. Now, if you notice, wala siyang nakalagay or naka-indicate what kind of data type you are going to put or assign on this kind of variable. Basta diretso na tayo sa pag-a-add ng values such as hello world, 5, and then the 10.5. So this is something that's, simple in PHP. You don't really need to do that because it's actually done automatically. If you type in an integer, then the web browser will consider this number as a whole number already. So, mag-a-adjust siya on its own. Kaya nga katulad nung nabanggit ko kanina at the first of our discussion that PHP is a forgiving language. So, now, in this part naman, yung pag-e-echo is also something that we used in PHP to print something on the screen of your computer. Again, we do have another discussion about print and the echo terminology. So, dito, tinawag lang po natin yung ating variable na text. Yes, kasama pa rin po yung $sign when calling a variable. And then, we use the BR tag. So, from the previous discussion natin, dati, last semester, BR is for making a line. To move to another line of code para doon naman niya ipiprint yung susunod na outcome. So, therefore, ang output po nito ay hello, 5, 10.5 because of the break lines. Hold on, I'll be adjusting my screen first. What about output variables? So in the PHP echo statement, it is often used to output data to screen. So we have like examples here to show you how to output the text in a variable. Kanina medyo ginamit naman na natin yan, no? So again, nung nag-create tayo ng variable text, ang nilagay natin na value is w3schools.com echo I love text. So dito, ganito pa rin yung pagtawag. So yan yung tinatawag nating output variables or parang pagka-cast ng output sa screen ng user. So the next topic is about this one. So parang it's just simply like a reminder to tell us that PHP automatically associates a data type to the variable, katulad ng nabanggit ko kanina. And once again, in PHP 7, type declarations were added already because this gives an option to specify the data type expected when declaring a function, and by enabling the strict requirements, it will throw a fatal error on type mismatch. Para naman dun sa mga makukulit na parang user na for example, nagpapa-enter ng pangalan, ilalagay number, o kaya naman nagpapa-enter ng number, ilalagay letters. So, para maiwasan na yung mga parang ganong error made by humans, either by mistake or on purpose rather, para maiwasan na magkaroon siya ng fatal error dun sa pag-accept ng inputs from the user. So, balik lang po tayo dun sa ating example, sa ating susunod na topic, yung ating namang variable scope. Variable scope is, in PHR or PHP, variables can be declared anywhere in the script. So, masyado nga kasi siyang maluwag, no? Hindi siya masyadong maraming rules, kahit saan pwede. The scope of a variable is the part of the script where the variable can be referenced or used. Well, PHP has 3 variable scopes. Meron tayong tinatawag na local, global, and static. Now, iisa-isahin natin yung ating different variables. Kumbaga, if I'm going to make an analogy of it, ito yung counterpart ng access modifier in Java. No, parang meron tayong public, meron tayong private. So, ito naman yung variable scopes na tinatawag sa PHP. Okay, pag sinabi natin global scope, this is our example here. So, i-zoom in lang po natin. Ito yung ating PHP code. Now, in this example, inside the PHP escape, you declared a variable like this as an example of global scope. When a variable is declared outside a function, katulad nito, ito yung function natin, function myTest, dineclare siya outside that function, then that is a global scope. And it can only be accessed outside a function. So, if this is something that you created outside the function, pwede mo lang siyang i-access outside the function as well. Now, hindi na siya, how about this question? Paano po, ma'am, kung ito po ay tinawag po namin inside the function. For example, ito pong nasa screen ngayon. Tinawag po namin yung local variable x inside the function myTest. So, using x inside this function will actually generate an error. Kasi nga po, katulad ng nasabi ko kanina, when you use a global scope, it can only be accessed outside the function that you have created. And on this case, tinawag mo yung x sa loob ng function myTest. Now, parang ganito yan. Tumatawag ka ng isang tao na hindi mo naman kilala. Para bang, parang naging bargas ka na, oy. So, tinatawag mo siya, but you don't know his or her name. Ganun din po sa ating tagging. Pagka nag-declare ka ng isang global scope variable outside the function, at ganun din po yon. Hindi yun mare-recognize ng iyong function na si x ay part ng iyong program. So, ma'am, paano naman po kapag gusto namin siyang ma-recognize sa loob ng function? Eh di syempre, gagamit po tayo ng ibang scope ng variable, which is we're going to talk on our next few slides. So this is another example pa po ng ating global scope. As you can see here, you can have local variables with the same name in different functions because local variables are only recognized inside that function which they are in where they are declared. So dito, we added like the x variable here as a global with the global scope, and then inside the function myTest, tinawag natin yung x na yon dahil nasa labas siya, so hindi siya mare-recognize. However, if you call it outside the function here like this, it will be recognized already kasi nasa labas na po siya ng function myTest. So, punta na tayo dun sa isang tinatawag pa nating example ko para mas madali pa nating maintindihan ano ba yung global scope na yan at local scope. Now, meron tayo ditong dalawang variable, no? As you can see, meron po tayong x and y. So, on this example, these are actually global scope variables. Now, meron tayong isang function myTest. Inside the myTest, naglagay tayo dito ng keyword na global. And then, after that, meron po tayong x and y variable declaration. And then, after that, meron pa tayong, what we call this, pinag-add natin yung x and y natin. So, technically, this variable right here inside the myTest are the local variable. So, kilala naman sila sa loob ng variable na yan, but most likely the output is gonna run the function. So, ito yung part na yun, no? Tinawag natin si myTest and then pinaprint natin si y. So, what do you think will be the output here? Type in your answers now in the chat box, no? When we run this on our web browser, ano kayang magiging outcome po nito? So, this is going to run this one, and since we use the keyword global, ibig sabihin, sinasabi natin sa myTest natin na we're actually referring to a global variable. Now, kahit naman dito, nag-declare pa ako dito ng x and y, hindi na siya local lang for the myTest. Because you added the keyword global, ibig sabihin we are referring to these variables already. Kaya ang magiging output po natin sa mga sumagot na ang output nila po ay, dahil ito, no, tinawag natin to at pina-echo natin si y. Ano ba ang value ng x natin? X plus y, right? So, ang value ng x natin ay 5 and 10. So, we add them to it's gonna be 15. So, sa mga sumagot na 15 ang sagot, ang output rather, then you are correct. So, There is another interpretation of the previous language previous code that I have shown you. Ito naman, pwede mo siyang ganito ang gawin mo, but really, doon na tayo sa medyo mas simple. Magkakaroon pa kasi tayo ng parang another set of discussion here pagdating sa pag-create ng iba't ibang style. So, for the time being, stick muna tayo dito para mas madali siyang maintindihan kasi I know na mas familiar kayo sa mga ganong klase ng setup since it has been created like in some sort of C language. So, the next thing that we will be talking about is the static keyword. Normally, when a function is completed or executed, all of its variables are deleted. However, sometimes you want a local variable not to be deleted, so we need it for a further job. To do this, use the static keyword when you first declare the variable. So, gamit ka daw ng static keyword para hindi siya ma-delete by mistake, no? And to do that, let me scroll to the right. To do that, just use now the static keyword before the variable name. So, ganun lang po. And again, ano bang purpose ng pag-create ng static keyword? For your variables not to be deleted. Okay? Now, yun lang naman technically yung pinakaano ng purpose ng static keyword. Because each time the function is called, that variable will still have the information it contained from the last time the function was called. So, please take note that the variable is still local to the function. Sinusunod pa rin natin na kapag ito ay dineclare mo, itong variable na to as a static inside the function myTest, then dun lang din siya kilala. Kapag lumabas ka na ng iyong function, hindi na kilala yung variable x na dineclare mo. Okay? Then, punta na po tayo sa other matters natin. Yung kanunang nasabi ko sa inyo kanina that we will be talking about this as well. Yung PHP and the echo prints statements natin, no? So, the echo and print are more or less the same. Okay, teka, parang hindi yata kita yung buong screen. Hold on. They are more or less the same. They are both used to output data on the screen. The difference are just really small actually. Echo has no return value while print has a return value of 1. So it can be used in expressions. So parang ano nga bang counter nito? Sa Java kasi meron tayong tinatawag na static. Pagka sinabing static, it doesn't return kapag hindi static pala, void. Kapag sinabing void, it's not gonna return a value. So, yun yung ating echo. Kapag wala siyang nire-return na value, use echo. Kapag may value po siyang nire-return, then use print. And echo can actually take multiple parameters, although such usage is rare, while print can take one argument, and echo is marginally faster than print. So, parang pwede mong gamitin a combination of both. Kapag may value kang i-return, then use print. Kapag wala, use echo para mas mabilis siyang i-print on screen. So, let's take a look at an example of echo statements. Ito yung mga statements na PHP is fun, hello world, I am about to learn PHP, this is string, and blah blah. Ito naman yung PHP natin. Meron siyang nire-return na value. Ano po yun, ma'am? So, nag-create tayo ng mga variables para sa Learn PHP, para sa w3schools.com na string 5 and 4. They are technically save on a variable, right? So, now, kapag in-echo po natin yon, doon naman, tatawagin natin yung kanyang variable name. Sa PHP naman, pwede mo pa rin siyang gamitin kahit wala siyang i-return na value. However, this is how you use it when it actually expecting a value at all. Sa akin, usually, para maging safe, ginagamit ko na lang po yung print statement. So, that's actually the end of our, what do you call this? Of our second lesson. Now, before we formally end our second lesson, we'll have a simple activity for this lesson para naman mas maintindihan natin kung, or ako, actually, sa akin, mas maintindihan ko kayo if may natutunan ba sa mga topics na i-discuss, no? Simple activity lang ito, and magkakaroon tayo ng mga practice sets. Magkakaroon po tayo ng mga practice sets para ma-check natin kung naalala nyo ba ito, mga pinag-discuss ko at pinagkukuda ko. So, please have a quick review on the lessons I posted. It's already available in LMS. If not, let me know para ma-upload ko right away sa LMS ninyo. So, after 10 minutes of you browsing the notes, magkakaroon po tayo ng activity regarding the lesson. So, if you have questions, this is the right time to ask. Thank you.